Good morning. Thank you for being here. Another exciting day ahead of us. It is 12:04 on the East Coast and 9:04 a.m. on the West Coast. This is Bill Bymel. Thank you for being here, those of you that are attending live and those that are watching the recording on YouTube or our website. We hope you'll attend future live tapings of the Win-Win webinar series. Today, we are going to have an exciting group of panelists, young executives in the real estate, mortgage, and finance world joining us here. These are gentlemen that I have had the honor of doing business with, and they each have very interesting perspectives. I call this the whippersnapper episode because all of the panelists that will be here today are under the age of 40, myself excluded, of course. I'm the old fogey in the group here. Before we get started, I do want to give everyone an update on the NPL market because that's what I do and that's what we're about. Although this webinar series does cover various aspects, all aspects of the real estate business, mortgage finance, commercial real estate, and we're going to have some very exciting conversations today. We have, especially in the area of office buildings. We'll get to that shortly. But in the area of non-performing residential loans, that's what we do. The update for those that have been following me these last few months, I've had concerns about our kick the can down the road scenario when it comes to residential non-performing mortgages. And what we've seen on the surface is 5 million loans went into government forbearance over the last year. The majority of them have come out successfully and are reperforming. But there remains approximately 2 million loans in the residential sector that are under some form of government induced forbearance program. And that's what we know about through these government insured loan programs. Of that 2 million, we know now that 1.5 million of those are severely delinquent loans. That means these are loans that have been in forbearance for at least 6 months or perhaps 9 months and will be going on 1 year. So there's no doubt that 1.5 million of the loans currently in forbearance will need some sort of extended workout to be done. Now, on the other side of the coin, large institutional investors who we would expect to be selling this product in the secondary mortgage market have been holding on to it with a wait and hope and see attitude. And a lot of that is due to the fact, as mentioned in previous months, that we have loosened TDR and CECL reporting requirements for banking and institutional investors in this country. Part of the CARES Act, part of this government intervention and manipulation of the real estate, mortgage, and finance markets. And that comes in the way of Congress basically saying to large institutions, you can hold these forbearance loans on your books and you do not have to account for them or report them as troubled debt. That has gone on. That was due to expire December 31st. It got extended to September of this year. So it's a big unknown. And it's a very interesting aspect of what's going on in the government manipulation of this market. That said, we all know that there's 1.5 million severely delinquent residential loans that will have to be worked out at some point. If that holds true, if what I say holds true, we will be looking at a doubling of the volume of residential non-performing mortgages overnight, later, so either sometime later this year or early 2022, depending upon how that comes into play. As far as my own personal business is concerned, those of you that are my partners that I've been in contact with recently are fully aware of some of the exciting stuff that we are doing. And so I will not speak any more to that, except to say that there are exciting days ahead in the world of NPL investing and subperforming loan investing. And we haven't even touched on commercial, but the good news is we are going to have a chance to touch on the commercial end today. So with that said, I am going to step back and be the moderator, and I'm going to invite my panelists up to join the conversation. We'll take a quick minute here for each of them to introduce each other, and then we'll jump right into the questions. Why don't we start with Zach Stokes to tell us a little bit. Why don't you introduce yourselves? Welcome.
Sure. Thanks, Bill. So my name is Zach Stokes. I'm with Newmark Knight Frank, which is a global real estate commercial brokerage firm. We have branches that do practically everything in commercial real estate. I think we're like the 4th largest. So, do anything from standard brokerage on the landlord or the tenant side for office, industrial, and retail, anywhere to CMBS lending through our Cantor commercial lending arm. And anywhere to purchasing no-tell. I think that's like our latest acquisition. So we're kind of all over the place. I specialize in tenant rep. That's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. I've done some landlord work, but mostly tenants on the office side and a little bit industrial.
Very nice. Zach, we're going to be coming right back to you for the very first topic. Jack Goldberg, tell us about yourself.
Hey, thanks, Bill, and thanks everybody for joining. Good to see everybody. Jack Goldberg. I'm with Time Equities Incorporated. We're a 55-year-old real estate investment and development company based out of New York City, which is where I'm calling in from today. We focus on acquiring and owning a diversified portfolio of income-producing and opportunistic assets, all different asset types, all different geographic locations. So we own a significant portfolio here in the U.S., 33 states. We're in Canada, Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, Great Britain. So our portfolio really benefits from diversification, and our team within Time Equities, the equity department, is responsible for sourcing and raising equity and debt to co-invest with the Time Equities principals in the buildings that we're buying today.
Very nice. So we're going to talk about office buildings with you. We're going to talk about raising capital with you, and all of that. Paul Werner, hello.
Hey, Bill. So I'm Paul Werner. I'm with RSI, Restaurant Sites International Incorporated, Retail Sites International. I primarily work on the tenant rep side, representing restaurants and retail. They basically tell me what they're looking for, and I go out and find it.
Very nice. Simon, tell us about you. Introduce yourself.
Hey, Bill. It's great to meet everyone. I'm an associate at Castle Placement. Castle Placement is based in New York City. We're an investment bank that primarily specializes in raising capital for private company. Really, our value in any transaction is that we have a huge amount of data, specific granular data on hundreds of thousands of investors. This ultimately allows us to drive a competitive bidding environment for really any transaction that we engage in. And that's pretty much what we do.
Very nice. I have the honor of having been introduced to Simon recently, a graduate of, I always say this about you, you're a graduate of Johns Hopkins University. And I don't know, I just love that. And you're a joy to work with. And you guys are doing some amazing stuff on the technology side. So we'll get back to you on that. Speaking of technology, Rob Haitha, hello.
I don't know. I guess just maybe
Well,
because I'm the youngest here.
the bass sax in the background is not.
Yeah, that's the Barry sax,
Barry
baritone, one
sax.
step up from the bass. But yeah, I'm Robert Heitha. Pleasure to meet you all. I'm with Fixed Notes, a distressed debt consultant company. You may know me from my primary client, U.S. Mortgage Resolution. I've been in the secondary mortgage market, specifically non-performing second mortgages, junior liens, for the last 10 years now. I recently started, well, last year, a industry show on YouTube. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, you know where to go. Just look up Fixed Notes and you can get some more of my industry content there. But in general, I've been a portfolio manager for most of these last 10 years, managing U.S. Mortgage Resolution's assets, mostly on the sales side, but we also do some distressed resolutions as well. But I'm sure we'll get into that more, and looking forward to it, guys. Thanks.
Very cool. And that, speaking of distressed mortgages, my man Harris Howard, say hello, Harris. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you. Hold on.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Bill. I'm happy that when you hear distressed mortgages, my name makes you so happy. But thanks for having me. I am an attorney down in South Florida. We're based in Boca. I run a real estate-based law firm focused on mortgage foreclosure litigation, representing lenders, first position, second position lenders in litigation throughout the state. And we also do a lot of lender representation on transactions down here in South Florida and throughout the state, both residential and commercial. Super high-touch law firm with very good communication and focus on technology also to leverage some of that and automate our processes to keep up our timelines and our speed, closing transactions and moving litigation files along.
And the key is the balance, right? It's about having the technology work for you so that you could take on some more volume, but not taking on so much volume that you're not giving the attention, right? And that's what you guys have been so great at over the years that I really love. All right, thank you, Harris. We'll look forward to your input on things. Our other guest, Ari Meltzer, sends me a text 15 minutes ago. I have to go on record and shame him a little bit that the major sewage pipe burst at one of his residential multifamily buildings, and he's dealing with the city and et cetera, et cetera. So, he will not be joining us today, and we wish him well. And maybe that's a little bit of fair weather for whether you should be, an investor in residential.
Can I hit that, Bill? My plumber's at one of my rentals right now with the main stack backed up. So
there you go.
That.
Okay, there you go. So very nice, very nice. So I'd like to get into the I want to really focus in on you, Zach. Because the question that I have, that I've been, is what the heck is going on or is going to happen in the office market? And we're very fortunate when Paul, my partner in the, retail tenant rep business, mentioned that he was friends with you and that you have been an office and industrial focused person in the southeast part of the country for a number of years. To tell you my own story, I ventured out of the house last week to a meeting with some friends and colleagues and partners, future partners in Irvine, and it was a ghost town. The Class A office buildings were all empty, and not just empty like they had closed up shop temporarily. This friend of mine I was visiting had just downsized by 90%. There was a tenant across the hall that had just left overnight. And yet we're not hearing a lot of this. Maybe we're not getting the access to the information. Tell us what's really going on in office, and give us a little bit of a 5 to 10-minute update or 5-minute update on the office industry.
Sure. Yeah. So to piggyback off your story, I would say that things are very market specific. So I don't really know the specific tenant mix in Irvine, but a lot of these tenants, depending on what they do and how they can conduct their business, are making different decisions on how they use space. So obviously everyone's kind of looking at their footprint. They're saying, who can work from home, who can't, how often do they need to work from home? What kind of office space do we need? What's it going to look like? All that sort of thing. So it's very tenant specific. It's very market specific as a result. I would say that in general, deal flow is way down. I mean, I think everyone's kind of aware that nobody's, the offices are struggling. It's not quite retail, but they're basically just kind of waiting to see and how this thing's all going to shake out. I mean, the people that are doing deals now are, the deals we're seeing now are subleases. We're seeing downsized deals if landlords are willing to entertain that, like you spoke of, or just tenants that have, they're large tenants that have leases up within, the next 2 years that just need to do something. So the deal flow is way down. It started, I think, to pick up towards the end of last year, and this year it's starting to feel a little more positive. I think people are starting to get their feet underneath them and starting to understand what it's going to look like going forward. I don't think that, these doom and gloom days of the office, going away completely is a real thing. I just think that the absorption is going to be low for a while. I think that, there's not going to be many spec office buildings coming out of the ground. I think that, they're just going to have to kind of let everything kind of shake out. And hopefully, the good thing is that the collection is good. These assets aren't being lost. CMBS delinquencies in office product is in the 2% range, which is the same for for industrial and other good products. I think it's just going to take a while to figure out because these leases are, it's the nature of 10-year leases. So it's still going to shake out. And
if you were an investor and you had 10 million to spend, would you look for office deals? Would you look for, or would you kind of want to wait and see where the market flushes out and put your money in other arenas? I mean, you mentioned you're doing a lot more industrial. That seems pretty
well, yeah. I mean, this year I kind of, I stopped cold calling office tenants and telling them we're going to restructure their lease because they just don't want to talk about it right now. So, I think everything's deal specific. If you can find a deal that makes sense in office, maybe they'll see a little, some of the cap rates going up a little bit. I mean, obviously we've seen some compression the last 2 or 3 years in office, as well as industrial, but I don't know that I'll see the cap rates going way up. I think we're going to try and keep the rents where they're at as much as possible. Landlords are going to want to try and offer more concessions versus actual rent. So, I think there can be some good deals in office, but I would look elsewhere as well. I think that, there could be some really good opportunities, obviously in industrial, but elsewhere, in other arenas, for sure.
Do you, Jack? I want to bring you into this conversation. Time owns and manages several office. You're probably not as office heavy as other sectors, right? Tell us what's going on from your perspective.
I'm glad you called on me because I was itching to get in on this conversation. I didn't want to be kept out on the side. So Zach, first of all, completely agree. And I think if you're going to ask that question, for us, real estate's yes, there's aspects of a macroeconomic environment, but it's such a microeconomic situation. One building in one area of the country could have a completely different situation than another type of office building in another area of the country. Right. So at Time Equities, we do have a significant office portfolio. Over the past 10 years or so, we've shifted that to suburban office. And to your question about if you have $10 million, would you invest in office? I would say depends on the deal. Because for us, and I think for most smart investors out there, the success of a deal is really dependent on how well you can buy it. And if you're in a situation where you're getting a quality bricks for $50 to $60 per square foot, which is half, if not a quarter, of replacement costs for some of these properties. And say it's 50. So this is something we're seeing right now. It's a 50% leased office, so half vacant. But we're getting it at a cap rate of 6.5% in a B market in Connecticut. So it's kind of like, you're buying downside protection. You're buying into the fear a little bit, but if you're able to buy it at a cheap enough price, you're really limiting the downside to, what happens if a market apocalypse happens. Right. So, I'll tell you a little bit more about our office. I mean, we own office in multiple different countries. We own 2 million square feet of office in the Netherlands, and we collected 100% of the rents for each one of those square feet in the Netherlands throughout COVID. every single month. It's market centric. It's, certain tenants pay, certain societies in this case pay. The Dutch, just for whatever reason, they have it built into them from birth that they pay their rent. And they do what they're, so they do what they
I
say
think
they're
you
going to do.
just gave
So
away
in that case,
a time equity secret here, Jack. We should all be investing in the Netherlands.
absolutely. It's no secret. Absolutely. Happy to share. We'd love to spread the wealth a little bit, but
That's great.
the Netherlands is a good example. And, just broadly on office, I think, like Zach said, the doom and gloom, we were in the same boat. And I know it's slightly different because this is New York centric, but, go back to 2001 and you'll recall people saying, everybody's moving out of Manhattan. No way does another Fortune 500 company decide to put their headquarters in downtown Manhattan or Midtown for that matter. And, that was justified in the moment. We were all scared in the moment there, but we as humans are such short-minded, short memory people. We get back to it. There are going to be some changes, like Zach said. Maybe absorption is going to be a little bit slow, but eventually, there's going to be needs. If it's not office and you buy it at the right price and you're able to invest in repurposing, then you're still the proud owner of good bricks and hopefully what is a good area.
Right. No, that's a very good point. And I'm keeping my eye open for deals in New York City, for my personal stake in the coming years, because like you said, everything comes around. And the cities have obviously been where everyone's been escaping from in the last year, but I certainly believe that cities like New York, our major cities will last long term. And the other point is well taken, that there might be certain areas where there's oversupply of office and businesses going out, and those are going to face some disruption. And just like in certain areas of the country, retail is dead, whereas in South Florida, Paul Werner, tell us what's going on in retail.
It is booming. It's crazy. I get, for our listings, we had 4 listings just in December. We've got 3 of them. One's closed already. 2 of them are under contract. Another one we're negotiating on now. We get so many restaurants looking to expand. I think with the vaccines coming out, and then also South Florida being open the whole time and people not really caring about COVID, it seems like it's fair market. We're going.
Right.
The landlords were able to basically keep all their asking prices, and they're getting stuff at what they've listed it. It's kind of insane. It kind of baffles me a little bit, but hey, I can't complain.
I think that obviously has a lot to do with Florida being open as far as markets are concerned, so businesses can still survive, and obviously flight from the cities down into the southeast has been tremendous. So going back to what Jack said about office buildings, and Zach or Harris, or if you guys want to pipe in at all, before we leave the topic of office buildings, your focus, if you're buying here in this country, Jack, would be look for the deals, look for opportunities where the cap rate might not be great, but because there's vacancy upside, and that translates into a below replacement cost purchase, those are the kind of deals that you obviously would continue to do. Start with Jack.
Yeah, exactly. We just acquired an asset in suburban Connecticut, let's say, for example. So it's in a B market. It's 50% leased. It's got about 40 different tenants. So it's a different kind of tenant that we're looking for. It's not one that's going to take the whole space.
Good
but
point.
We found ourselves in a market, exactly like you said, at half, if not less, replacement cost, with a solid current income, and the opportunity to grow it if we're able to lease it up within the next 3 to 4 years. Which in this case, typically it takes us 1 to 2 years to lease up something like this. We've just expanded that time horizon. Like Zach said, we expect it to take a little bit longer. But you know, it's such a funny situation in this climate. You know, everybody says, you know, nobody's going to need office. Nobody's going to the retail stores to go shopping. You know, brick and mortar is dead. Retail across the board, it's just silly, in my opinion, because we're finding there's always going to be somebody, if not an existing company, a new company coming through the works, that needs a little place. And say, you know, they don't want to pay top dollar for something in downtown Stamford or Greenwich because it's not worth it to them, but people still need a little bit of space. And companies, we're finding also either, you know, they're deciding that they're going to limit people in their office, but maybe they're going to move from a major downtown area like Manhattan to a suburban office because that gives people a little bit more space between each other, a lot more flexible floor plates in suburban offices. So that's, you know, that's the bet that we've been making over the past 10 years. Like I said, you know, people going to suburban office, it offers a lot more flexibility, and it offers people the chance to not have to commute to major, you know, highly occupied downtown cities like Manhattan.
So to follow up on that question, Jack, are you still, you do a lot of investing of your own company's money, but you also have a lot of partners out there. So you sit right on that edge of talking to the investment partners that go in as capital with you. What is the sentiment you're hearing from those partners? Is is it the same as yours, or do you get a sense of an apprehension from some of your outside investors in that area?
Sure. I mean, that's the job, right? It's to explain. And, you know, we've been doing this for 55 years now, and we've just grown substantially over those years. So it's almost a little bit like trust us. We've been here before. And some people say, you know what, we trust Time Equities. We trust Time Equities chairman. It is, you know, it's not for everybody. You know, each deal has, my job is really to talk with investors, take what they want, what they're looking for, and match them up with a deal that we have in our pipeline. So, you know, suburban office deals these days are certainly more so for the opportunistic investor who is okay with let's say that 50% lease office property is okay with a slightly lower return today and maybe the next year or two in return for a double-digit cap rate or a double-digit income return in, you know, 5+ years. Right. So it's
a cap res play combined with some future upside, and the only risk is really one of extension, right? More than anything, you know.
Right. It's when are we going to get that fully occupied? So it's certainly more so for the opportunistic, you know, riskier investor who has that.
Very interesting. And then Simon, to follow up, to piggyback on that, you know, you talk to investors across multiple asset classes outside of real estate, but just in the area of real estate, let's just focus you in on what we do over here. Do you hear any apprehension? You talk to all different types of investors. What do you hear from investors that you're sitting on calls with as far as their attitude toward various classes of real estate, starting with office, and then, you know, you could talk about other stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's, without being too definitive, because I think Zach and Jack both answered pretty well on this, and probably definitely a lot more specialized than myself. But I think it's really impossible to discount the whole industry of real estate looking ahead. I think it's, I mean, despite the fact that, I mean, we've had amazing advances in working from home and technology this year that's really paved at least some way for our future. But I mean, I find it really hard to believe the discount community. I'm originally from Florida. I was there for the past 8 months up until December. And yeah, it's a completely different culture than it is up here. And well, I mean, you're going to have different industries, different areas, certainly, and really acting in very different manners. I think it's unwise to hold so much apprehension in that area.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk about. So Zach, one more question for you, and then we're going to leave office. So you have you because Jack hit a chord there with me when he said, you know, these large deals with single tenants where And I think you might have been involved in a few of those over the years, right? Have you had any landlords calling you up screaming, saying, if I lose this $10 million lease tenant, I'm fucked? Or any horror stories or happy stories? Anything on that front?
In terms of big deals, I would just say they're not really happening right now unless I absolutely have to. People I think they just still don't know what they want to do with their space quite yet. And it depends on the user, like we're sort of talking about. It's very user specific. For instance, I have a sublease in Brickell that's a full floor. It's a nice building. This is a subsidiary of DeVry, and they just picked up, pretty early in this thing, they picked up and just abandoned the whole thing. But then you have a law firm we represent, one of the big name law firms in town, and they've got like 120,000 square feet, and they're not, they might shed 20,000. We looked at shedding 20,000 feet, but that was it. I mean, they're going to still occupy a fair amount of space, right. But they're not looking. We looked at restructuring their deal, and they decided they weren't really ready to pull the trigger. So I think people are, these big deals, unless it's Amazon or unless it's, someone's just growing insanely fast or something like that. I think most people are just sort of sitting around and waiting. And, again, nature of real estate, it's just going to take some time to kind of shake out. I think that we'll take the balance of this full year to really kind of know where those bigger deals are going. And like I said, unless they just have to do something.
It's interesting. And I think that, a lot of what that I think about as an investor, because obviously we buy non-performing, sub-performing debt. And so our job is to work, that out, with the borrowers. And obviously there's underlying collateral, but that is related to it. And a lot of it is about the ethics of how you deal with people. And right now in this year, it feels like so far in the last year since COVID's come forward, a lot of people have dealt with people nicely. Landlords, where they can be, are being generous with tenants, and because we're all in this together. And that's one positive thing that I think I'm seeing out of what's happened here in the last year is that so far everyone's playing nice, right?
Some landlords are.
Yeah,
not all of them, but yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
And in that area, Howard, I'd love to talk to you and bring you into the conversation about, because you're on the front lines. Your job is to foreclose, evict, talk to us about what you're seeing in the court system, and again, how is the market feel for you right now in terms of, is there a looming amount of situations you think that are on the horizon? What do you think?
So there is a backlog, and I can only speak to foreclosure in the Florida and the courts in Florida. All the government loans remain on hold in terms of foreclosure world. All of the private loans are able to proceed based on Governor DeSantis's limitation of the moratorium, which expired in August now. So for about six months, we've been full steam ahead. I'm lucky to have a lot of private individuals and companies like Bill and his companies and other companies similarly situated that are always aggressive in trying to resolve defaults with the tenant or with a borrower. I've only seen that level of care for the borrower and the tenant increase during COVID. It certainly makes my job a lot easier. We know going into any case, we can most likely settle it so long as the other side has some bandwidth to do so. And if there is that bandwidth, then Bill and his team and all of our other clients luckily give us the freedom to draft up a document that's going to make it a win-win for everybody.
I love it.
Involved in the transaction. Yeah, that was for you, Bill.
You got to plug the win-win, Well, along those lines, I'm bringing Rob Heitha into the conversation because Rob, you have been over your career. I know at USMR, you resolved 10,000 loans or so. I mean, some of them
didn't resolve all 10,000.
Right. That's right. You bought and sold a lot of those, right? But talk to us about, and then you went out and created this company, Fixed Notes. really kind of from a moral perspective more than I don't know, more than anything, but really
Yeah.
that was to talk to me about that.
No, so there's a couple missions there. One was to democratize the residential secondary mortgage market, because I believe that the opportunity to buy debt has kind of been reserved for, it still is, for the more sophisticated investor. But to make that more accessible to, the retail mom and pop type of investor, I think is important just because of the advantages you have as a lender versus as a landlord or, real estate owner. So that was one side, to bring more investors into the fold to take advantage of the opportunity. But to do so, you need to educate them properly and make sure that people understand that you're dealing with, when you deal with a borrower, you have the opportunity to change their life positively or negatively, depending on which direction you're going to pursue. So I made it a point to educate the people who come to Fixed Notes on how I believe you can ethically operate in this industry to create not only win-win, but there's a third win there, because by buying these loans off of the bank balance sheet, we're helping the original lender as well to clear up their books. So I have a course on my website that I offer for free. And then I do this YouTube show, which also for free, just to make sure that people are not only understanding how to operate in this business, effectively, but also ethically, with the borrower's livelihood and their interests in mind as well.
Right. That's great. This is why I love having these guys on, because the people that I look to do business with, whether it's the large institutional guys like Jack and Time Equities, or the guys, individual investors like Rob, who are out there teaching and spreading the good word. I think that really, to me, rings true to what my career has been all about. And in that regard, how do you see the world? I mean, Rob, you're younger than me. Where are you personally investing your money? What do you see? I feel like the old fogey. I would like to hear some young perspective. We're going to go around the horn and talk quickly about where you're investing. Are you going and doing the GameStop thing, or let's go around the horn, and this doesn't have to be real estate. You can tell us what you're investing in these days. Start with you, Rob.
I'll start there. Yeah. So I have many sleepless nights thinking about the missed opportunity of Bitcoin. I was thinking about mining Bitcoin, I don't know now, like 10 years ago when it was 50 cents. I started to go down the track to actually buy it then, and then just didn't pull the trigger. So I will admit, last night I bought Bitcoin Cash, just a small amount, just to see what happens, because PayPal now offers crypto within the PayPal app, so it makes it very, very easy to purchase crypto. So that's one thing. It was $500, so it's not really significant with regards to my larger portfolio. But something I definitely want to consider as a wealth preservation angle. Personally, I guess this is more old school, but I like metals, particularly silver, and particularly physical. So that would be one hedge as well. But the majority of my portfolio is in rental properties. I don't have as many opportunities to buy notes as I would like because of the adverse selection potential when purchasing from my portfolio management clients. So I don't buy as much NPL. I do buy reperforming loans from investors who buy non-performers from my clients and then turn them into reperforming assets. I buy that type of loan in my self-directed IRA. But in general, I kind of have a pessimistic view towards speculation and trading just to find the bigger fool. I don't think that adds value. So I do, and maybe I'll come back to this for my prediction.
No, I actually agree with that prediction, but there are like others that may not, including Ari, by the way, who loves to day trade. So I'm glad he's not here.
It's cool. I'm like intrigued by it, and I have traded some options, but I don't really like how it doesn't really do anything. I feel like my time could be better served to creating value, to writing a blog post about my industry or creating a video, as opposed to just trying to scalp a couple bucks on a trade. I mean, nothing against investors who are successful and interested in that, but I don't know. I try to shy away from it for the most part.
Harris, where are you putting your money these days?
I'm mostly in the stock market, to be honest. I've got had a pretty good run up here recently, and I got a couple NPL deals and a couple office deals, and I would look for any value add situation right now, whether it's office or some other real estate play. I'd like to get some money out of the market and utilize some of the cash I have on hand to get a little bit more into the real estate game.
Paul Werner?
So I'm actually similar to Harris. I invested a lot in stocks early on in the year, knowing that it was going to crash. I purchased pharmaceuticals, electric cars, and a Bitcoin. I did some crypto, and I've done very well. So now I'm kind of holding on hope, hoping that I keep making some money, and then maybe roll that over to some real estate in New York if that residential market keeps going down.
That's right. And Jack, what about you?
Great question. I like everybody's inputs. I'll take a little bit of what everybody else said. I'm currently in the stock market. I'm considering how much I need to start taking out. I'm thinking about taking some chips off the table. I think it's too good to be true, and everything I'm reading says these valuations make no sense, and somehow it keeps going up. And I think we should all know when things make no sense, that's when you should start getting worried a little bit. So that's my thoughts. And when I do pull out the gains that I've made on the Apples and the Teslas and some other, I invested in one ETF of an Israeli technology company or Israeli tech basically, and that's been doing really well over the past few months. But kind of like Paul said, I've just been waiting for the opportunity to invest in something in New York City, a condo, something that's at the bottom end of things now that people are moving out, knowing, New York City is what it is. I'm waiting to see what happens.
Okay, very cool. Zach, what about you?
Nothing that no one's mentioned. I've been ripping with the equities just like everyone else. I guess I was lucky enough dumb enough or smart enough to get some Bitcoin at one point, so that was good. I have a small interest in a couple retail real estate plays. I was lucky. I was lucked up there because it was the tenant was DaVita Dialysis, so just kind of like one of those lucky things.
Right.
And then I've been trying to I guess Jack mentioned kind of taking some chips off the table, maybe trying to rotate in some ETFs, maybe some more value stocks. I mean, these valuations are way high, but it's hard to compare. I don't know. I'm in my mind, I'm trying to compare an overvalued Tesla versus an overvalued GameStop. It's obviously two different things. So I don't know. I don't know if I think if it's going to all come crashing down soon, or if it's going to keep on ripping for another 12 months. I'm kind of torn between those two. So.
Right. Well, if they keep printing money at nonstop, you never know. I mean, it's all fake money anyways, right?
Simon, my brother's trying to get me to go into Dogecoin, so that's
really.
Speaking of Dogecoin, I actually made a lot of money on that just as a joke. Good times.
I don't want to hear that. Simon, where are you planning to put your millions in the future?
Yeah, I think you guys all had some pretty good answers, and to go off of both Zach and Jack, I mean, for the most part, I'd say in the stock market, but I think it's tough to say. I mean, I think the crypto space is interesting. I mean, I also think stock market's interesting, but I mean, it's tough to see the value there right now. Right. I think Zach hit on maybe a larger question that, I mean, for the past year, you've pretty much seen everything just go up. When is the change going to really happen? And that's probably the larger question.
None of us. It's so funny how all of you guys are invested. Well, not all of you are pretty much invested in the stock market except Rob and I maybe. And nobody wants to be the last guy holding the bag here. And everybody's loving it. I mean, it's got to end soon, right? I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, by the way, if you have a question live, we're getting close to the end here. I see one hand up, Ahmed. If you do have a question, there's a little Q&A box, and I'm glad to ask the panelists here. I want to move on to a couple more sets of questions. And let's just do a quick run on technology. This will be a 1-minute answer or less. Any new technologies, because I kind of I did a poor service of last episode being a technology episode, and then we ended up not even talking about technology. I'd like to hear from the whippersnappers here. What new technology app or item or program or social media, what's the newest thing that you're interested in right now that's caught your eye in the last few months, so that, you know, because I haven't had time to be in the know, starting with Rob Heitha.
Well, thanks. So you guys probably might already know this or be planning on mentioning it, but Clubhouse is blowing up and it's super cool. You need an invite to join, but if someone in your network has an invite already, it's very easy to let you in. So definitely apply. It's basically like live podcasts where there's a room of people having an informal conversation. The conversations aren't recorded, so it's very candid and a wide range of topics. Last night I heard Kim Dotcom speak on government surveillance and crypto and a bunch of other things. So very cool. Check out Clubhouse. As far as smaller business owners like myself who manage their own databases, I really like Podio as a CRM. I've used Salesforce and a bunch of other different CRM platforms, but I've resonated with Podio and I think it's pretty powerful when you develop it properly. And one tip for you, Bill, with your show, I would recommend, I don't know if I can show you this.
I like it. Oh,
oops. Here, sorry. This thing, this is called the ATEM Mini, and it's a video switcher. So I have all of my camera angles for my YouTube show here, and I can switch between them. It's not on right now, but it's super cool and lets me do, let me go back to my other screen here. It lets me do screen shares and different camera angles and all sorts of things that are super useful. So software and hardware. There you go.
Right. Yeah, no, my friend VJ is texting that he can send me the Clubhouse link if I want it. I actually have one already. Just as Simon, what about you on technology? Anything cool that you're into?
I was going to say Clubhouse. That was a good one. I was checking that out last week. Something that I think is interesting. This isn't a specific technology, but I've just been hearing about in terms of the space, specifically education. I don't know if anyone's heard about the term micro schools. Pretty much the concept is, I mean, especially in light of working from home, I mean, not wanting to congregate, is that typical teacher anywhere in the nation, you're going to pay them roughly 50 to 80,000. That's pretty much the most. You get 4 parents in the neighborhood who'd send their children to private schools. And I mean, they contribute pretty much the same and they get a private teacher for their kids. That's something that I've heard is coming up in areas. Obviously wealthier areas, but I think it's something that's really interesting. It's only giving, more power to the individual. And
that is awesome. I actually love that. That is brilliant. And that goes along with our Save the World motto. Very good, Simon. Paul Werner, what about you on technology?
So technology, really Clubhouse, we've been using a lot lately. So that was a great ad. That's probably what I would have said. Photo Leap I've been using to mark up aerials and insert some new properties and things like that.
Very cool. Zach, anything new in the technology world for you?
I don't know. I'm feeling like a boomer right now. I can't add much. I don't know. Everyone's kind of mentioned everything. I've been paying more attention to a lot of message boards, things like stock twits and things, I was sort of late to the Reddit game and kind of like, just sort of seeing what more people are talking about and following that. I've been doing a little bit more of that lately. And to piggyback on what Simon said, I agree that I think education is going to get disrupted in the next few years. It's just so expensive. It's risen. The cost has risen so much faster than inflation that I think there's an opportunity there. And I think technology will be a big part of that.
Right. That's good. Jack, what about you?
Surprised nobody said this. It's the obvious one. It's not really future. It's now. It's Zoom. We at Time Equities refer to the future not as post-COVID, but as post-Zoom. We all can do things now that we never, maybe we didn't want to. We didn't see the value in it before. I know Zoom was a thing before this, but I think Zoom is changing the world probably more than any other technology right now.
That is so brilliant and so well said. I mean, just to think, when this all happened for me, I mean, look, I created an environment where I could do meetings and have like a background, and it's like we've now this is my entire office right here.
I've got a
So,
comment on that.
yeah.
How bad is Skype, where they messed up so bad, where everybody said I would Skype you, and now it's Zoom. Zoom just
Right.
How is that?
And yeah, seriously, they own the market, and that's a Microsoft company. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes them. It's amazing, right? Amazing. Harris, anything new on the technology front that you want to recommend?
Yeah, actually, I consider myself an old guy like you, but we did adopt some good technology for the law firm. We're trying to focus on automation and really put a big emphasis on it towards the end of last year and into this year. We adopted a company called CaseAware for our practice management software, which is specific to the real estate forum and allows for tons of automation, very good workflow, and a unique ability to create a product that's specific to our firm, the way we want to do things. And it's going to really allow us to scale up and just sort of insert employees at different stages as the growth comes without really missing a beat and figuring out assignments and work product. So super excited about the CaseAware technology that took me a long time to get on board with it, but we're finally all in, and I'm excited about it.
That is very cool. What was that called again?
CaseAware.
CaseAware. Okay, very good. Do you have to be an attorney to use it, or yeah?
I think it's geared towards attorneys in the mortgage default space.
It's very cool. Very cool. Very cool. And if you believe what I say, then there might be more files in the future. So a very good tool to use. I really appreciate your time here today. If you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat or in the Q&A, or email any one of our attendees individually after the webinar. Don't forget to see you again next month. Before we leave, I have this new tradition that I've started, and it's predictions. And so I'm going to ask each one of our panelists to go around and make their prediction for 2021. Now, as opposed to in the past where I've been very serious about this, I've decided to take the wait, don't tell me approach this time. And I am going to say that you can make a real prediction, like, that COVID will go away and, we'll all live happily ever after starting in 2022. Or you can make a funny prediction. For example, my prediction for 2021 will be that and it of course has to come back to the industry. My prediction for 2021 is that Congress will wake up March 1st and decide that we do not need an eviction moratorium in this country, and they will end it as of the Ides of March. The good news for people in Florida is that any tenants recently evicted will be offered a free 1-week stay at Mar-a-Lago. Who else has a prediction for 2021? Let's go around the room. Who's up? Okay. Harris, you go first. Oh, no, Harris. I said Harris. Are you ready, Harris?
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, Paul, you're going.
So in 2021, they realized that the election was actually really fixed. Kanye West is president. He then freezes all rent possible, and then the landlords lose all their properties, and the billionaires are able to buy everything. Team easy.
Rob Haifa, you're next.
Maybe this is more wishful thinking, but I predict or maybe hope that the speculative trading will go out of vogue. And I do think that we've seen kind of the peak of that frenzy with easy apps like Robinhood and Wall Street Bets and everything. But there's so many bag holders now that I think that there's going to be a clear shift there, which I think bodes well for our real estate and alternative investment industries, because these investors are going to look for yield elsewhere, and hopefully they'll find us here.
Yeah, Very good. Very good. Simon, you're up.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to piggyback off of Rob's comments. I think I have to disagree. I think you're going to see more and more retail participation, not necessarily leading to speculation, but I mean, call it what you want. The big thing for us at Castle Placement is the SEC is changing, it's called Reg CF, just crowdfunding. They're pretty much changing the regulations, allowing people to raise, which is now $1 million up to $5 million. I mean, it's going to hugely increase the amount of retail participation really in these markets. So I see it tough to see it changing.
Zach, what's your prediction for 2021?
My ridiculous prediction is that now that Bezos stepped down from Amazon, he's going to try and take over real estate and he's going to become a landlord and take over the entire world before he hops in a Tesla spaceship with Elon Musk and moves to Mars.
I love it. I love it. Jack, predictions.
That's the most realistic thing I've heard so far. Realistically, but also funny, I realized that right after the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic came the Roaring 20s. So I think we're going to start seeing people in 1920s dressed to the nines to go get their hair cut, to go do anything. I think when people start feeling a little bit better, there's going to be a new level of excess and ridiculousness, which I can't wait to see. I'm talking,
especially as a
flamethrowers,
a single guy in New York.
Yeah. hey now.
I may have to move to New York with you, Jack.
Please, yes, in my tiny shoebox apartment, which will be massive next time.
Great.
We'll see.
Harris, how about you? Last prediction.
Yeah, a little dovetail off that. I think office is going to perform better than a lot of people think, given that there's going to be some excitement in the world and in business and people getting out there. So I know it's not the most realistic thing, but I guess a prediction is that office is going to perform better than people think.
I love the fact that we have an attorney that's the optimistic one. So I'm all for it. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Thank you for attending. And we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bill.